Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Plant Physiology course. We started the discussion of plant-water relations or water relations. In the previous video, we discussed an introduction to diffusion and the classical definition of diffusion, which states that diffusion is movement of molecules or ions from their region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. As in the end, we discussed that this definition of diffusion does not tell us anything about the actual process, the process of diffusion. So now we are going to discuss some basic concepts about energy, and then we are going to apply those concepts or those laws of energy or principles to the process of diffusion so as to get a more meaningful and appropriate definition of diffusion. So we start with discussion of thermodynamics. But before going further, let me tell you that this is not a physics class and we are not going to discuss thermodynamics in detail, and it will not be a mathematical discussion. We are not going to prove the laws or concepts of thermodynamics. Living organisms are made of matter, and we know that matter is something which has mass and occupies space, something which you see around yourself. And the plants are also matter, we are also made of matter, and everything that we use in our daily life, it is made of some kind of matter. So very easy to interpret. But what about energy? Energy is something that has no mass and does not occupy space. And it is very difficult to grasp the concept of energy. But this science of thermodynamics has made our task of understanding the concept of energy pretty easy. Thermodynamics, let's define it. What is thermodynamics? Thermodynamics is, in a very simple words, or in fact in few words, is the science of energy transformations. Thermodynamics, so to say, was invented, or the concepts of thermodynamics emerged in the 19th century, and the concepts of thermodynamics were applied to heat and especially steam engines. But now thermodynamics is virtually applied to any field of science. So let's first go through a few very basic definitions of thermodynamics, and then a very basic concept of thermodynamics, especially when we are going to apply the laws of thermodynamics to something like, as we shall do it in case of diffusion. And then we are going to discuss the laws of the thermodynamics. Here is our first definition, which I have just stated: the science of energy transformation. So in thermodynamics, we study the transformation of energy. Here is another definition of thermodynamics, and this particular definition states that this is a science which deals with energy changes, and energy changes in these two basic processes, chemical as well as physical. So science that studies or deals with energy changes in various physical and chemical processes. So these are the two very basic simple definitions, and as I just told you, thermodynamics was initially applied to heat and transformation of heat to work, that is how work can be done, and energy, steam engines. But now the applications of thermodynamics are virtually everywhere. So it is not just restricted to heat or steam engines. So it is concerned with energy. Before discussing the laws of thermodynamics, the first, second, and the third law of thermodynamics, let's consider some very basic concepts about thermodynamics. So one term that is used is system. So in thermodynamics, system is any part of the universe that is under consideration, in which we are doing our experiment or with which we are working. So a system can be anything. It can be at a microscopic level. It might be a plant cell, it might be a tissue, it might be a plant, it might be an ecosystem, and it can be our entire biosphere. And at a very large level, this system can even be our galaxy, the Milky Way. So system is an area or a place or a region of space or matter on which we have focused our attention. So it can be anything which is under consideration. Then we have surroundings. So system which is under consideration. It might be any region or it might be a matter, anything. Surrounding, everything which is not part of the system is its surrounding. Something that we are not considering or something to which we are not paying our attention is the surrounding of the system. And next is boundary. So the boundary is the line of demarcation between our system, the area or the place or the matter which we are considering, and its surrounding. Now all these concepts are quite abstract and mostly they are imaginary, like surroundings or the boundary. So boundary is basically an imaginary line which separates our system, our area or matter of consideration from its surrounding. So these are a few very basic terms that are used in thermodynamics. So again, system is any part of the universe. It might be a lab, it might be a molecule, it can be anything which we are considering, and anything outside that system is its surrounding. And boundary of the system is that imaginary line which separates system from its surroundings. Thermodynamics is mostly concerned with energy transfers or energy interactions across the boundary. Now let's draw. Now this is our system. This is just to clarify the concepts. So this is our system, and this line, obviously it is the boundary of the system, and outside this boundary we have the surroundings. Thermodynamics is concerned with energy transfers or interactions across the boundary from the surroundings and the system. Now it must be realized that this system and surrounding, they constitute even a larger system that has no surrounding. It might be a little confusing to you, but since we are not going to go into details about the thermodynamics and the concept of system and surroundings, so for our discussion we are mostly restricted to so-called closed systems. So a system that has a definite boundary, it is a closed system, and we are not going to consider other concepts like open system and rather elaborated or detailed discussion of thermodynamics. We are not going to consider that. So hopefully you are following me, and what we have discussed so far, a basic definition of, just to recap, basic definition of thermodynamics, that this is the science of energy transformation, how energy is transformed and how energy interacts. That is, it mostly deals with energy and how work can be done with that energy. So this is the science which deals with energy changes where in chemical and physical processes. So this is a very basic definition of thermodynamics. And then in thermodynamics we have these few pet terms or basic terms: system, surroundings, and boundary. So system any part of the universe, any part, anything around you which you are considering, on which you have focused your attention. So that is system. And everything that is outside it, outside the system, is its surroundings. And an imaginary line between the system and the surroundings is its boundary. So in this case, this is our system, and this is surroundings, and this is the boundary of the system. And in thermodynamics, especially in our discussion, we shall consider the so-called closed system, because system and its surrounding, they become even larger systems, which is beyond the scope of our discussion. So after seeing these few basic concepts about thermodynamics, let's turn our attention to the laws of thermodynamics. Laws of thermodynamics. There are two famous laws of thermodynamics, and they are known as first law and second law of thermodynamics. There is also a third law. So the first law of thermodynamics is actually the law of conservation of energy. And it simply states that you can transform energy from one form to another, but you can neither create it nor destroy it. So energy can neither be created nor destroyed. However, it can be transformed from one form to another. A very important law, and it has very important applications as far as the plant world is concerned. Here's the definition, or a couple of definitions of law of conservation of energy, or the first law of thermodynamics. So it says that in any chemical or physical change, if it occurs, any chemical or physical change, energy is, it is not created and nor it is destroyed. But what happens? But it can be transformed. You can simply transform it from one form to another. It can simply be transformed. So this is the first law of thermodynamics. It can be stated in another way, and it says that in any process, now we are talking about the total energy of that system that we have just considered and its surroundings. So the total energy of the system and its surroundings remains constant. It doesn't change. During energy transfers or energy transformations or energy interactions, the total energy of the system and its surrounding doesn't change. It remains constant. So there might be a gain or loss from the surrounding into the system, or from the system into the surroundings, but the total amount of energy doesn't change. So this is the first law of thermodynamics. This first law of thermodynamics, as I just stated, has some very important effects or important applications. Since energy can be transformed, so in photosynthesis, we can say that light energy is transformed into potential energy of what is called food, that is synthesized by the plant. So energy is transformed from one form to another. The light energy that is captured by the plant or the photosynthetic parts of the plants, it is transformed. It is not destroyed, and it is not created by the plants. It is simply transformed. So this is one basic application of the first law of thermodynamics. The second is, since energy, total energy remains the same, energy doesn't change. There is no gain or loss of energy. Since there is no gain or loss of energy, what it tells, the first law of thermodynamics, that the amount of light energy received by the plant, it will be stored, and it cannot exceed the amount of energy that is received by the plant. That is, the amount of energy stored in the food or in the compounds that are synthesized by the plant during photosynthesis cannot exceed the light energy that is captured, because energy is not created, neither nor it is destroyed. So these are two basic applications of first law of thermodynamics, that plant can transform the energy as they do in the photosynthesis. And second is that in doing that they cannot exceed the amount of energy that is captured or absorbed. So this was the first law of thermodynamics. So this was the discussion of first law of thermodynamics. Some more concepts about thermodynamics and the second and the third law we shall discuss in the next video. So thanks for watching and see you in the next video.